Los Angeles is known for its glamour, sunshine, and endless opportunity, but hidden in the city's forgotten shadows is a place that has captured dark imaginations for decades. Tucked between Skid Row and downtown LA is the notorious Cecil Hotel, a building synonymous with tragedy, mysterious deaths, and haunting experiences that make even seasoned travelers uneasy. Storytellers call it legend, but the facts are chilling, real, and well documented. Built in 1927, the Cecil Hotel began as a destination for tourists and businessmen alike. But over the years, its reputation eroded. Economic decline, waves of homelessness in nearby streets, and persistent crime began to overshadow its early promise. By the 1980s, the hotel had become known as a low-budget residence for people with nowhere else to go. Murders, suicides, and unexplained disappearances became disturbingly frequent. Many locals whispered that something about the building itself fed on the misery inside it. One of the most infamous real cases occurred in 2013 when 23-year-old Canadian visitor Elisa Lam checked into the Cecil. Surveillance footage from inside the elevator late at night showed her acting erratically, hiding in corners, pressing multiple buttons, and reacting to something she never acknowledged on camera. She vanished shortly afterward. Days later, her body was discovered in a water tank on the hotel's roof. Tests showed her body had been in the tank for days, yet there were no signs of how she got there or how she died. No clear explanation consistent with the surveillance footage or the physics of the building. The official report listed her death as an accident, but conspiracy theories exploded online, suggesting sinister explanations ranging from supernatural involvement to psychological breakdown under stress. The Cecil became more than a hotel. It became a place everyone feared. Before Elisa Lam, the hotel was already infamous for its crime history, including multiple suicides across decades and even confirmed murderers staying under assumed names. Richard Ramirez, the infamous Night Stalker, was once a registered guest. The macabre overlap between the hotel's guest history and real violent events gave rise to a public perception, supported by longtime residents and former employees, that the Cecil was cursed, haunted, or otherwise deeply wrong. Over the years, tenants described waking in the middle of the night to footsteps in unseen hallways, whispering voices echoing through empty rooms, and doors that opened and closed by themselves. Former desk clerks reported flickering lights that seemed to follow certain people, and guests mentioned sudden cold spots, so intense it felt like a separate presence had entered the room. Some even claimed they suddenly felt watched beside them in bed despite being alone. Psychologists and skeptics argue that confirmation bias, anxiety, and the power of suggestion can explain many experiences. But the scope and consistency of the complaints, across decades and from hundreds of unrelated individuals, pushes the story beyond simple coincidence. Sleep researchers also note that environments associated in the mind with anxiety and danger can trigger disturbed sleep, hallucinations, and intense dreams that feel real. But even they admit the Cecil occupies a unique place in the American psyche. In 2017, rumors spread through paranormal investigator circles that a sudden spike in calls to the front desk were recorded in the early morning hours, more than any typical hotel, even considering its size and location. Guests would call and ask for lights to be turned on because something was in the hallway, or someone kept whispering. The desk logs contain notes like guest refused to sleep, panic attack, and refused room after midnight. Staff eventually stopped logging these as formal incidents because there were simply too many, and because no direct threats were ever confirmed. But the pattern remained. Nobody slept well at the Cecil Hotel. Some guests booked their rooms only for sunset arrivals and early departures, never staying overnight. Others left their doors ajar all night, refusing to lock the room behind them. Heavy travelers spoke in hushed tones about their uneasiness walking to their cars in the darkened hotel parking lot. Long-term residents spoke about dreams that felt more like memories, dreams they didn't recognize as their own. The Cecil's management quietly renovated parts of the building and for a time tried to rebrand it, even operating it as a hostel with cheaper rates and cleaner floors. But stories of oddities never ceased: doors slamming, electric anomalies, bathroom taps turning on without contact, bedsheets wrinkled as if someone had been sleeping in them when no one was. Whether you chalk it up to true supernatural influence, the weight of tragedy built up over decades, or psychological responses to fear and expectation, there's one thing even skeptics agree on: people don't rest well at the Cecil. And many check out early. Many horror and paranormal enthusiasts have visited the Cecil Hotel hoping to capture evidence of the unexplained. Some stayed multiple nights, recording audio and video in hopes of documenting footsteps, whispers, or other anomalies. A few claimed to capture strange sounds late at night, indistinct murmurs, distant knocks, or low humming frequencies that don't match any known mechanical source in the building. Some video recordings show unexplained shadows darting across hallways while no one else is visible on camera. But the most unsettling reports come from people who didn't set out to investigate. These were everyday guests, tourists, business travelers, or people passing through, who found themselves awake at 3 a.m., staring at corners of their rooms they swore weren't empty. Several guests reported waking up to feel cold spots near the bed, as if someone was standing just behind them, even though they were alone. Others described the sensation of being watched from the foot of the bed or hearing their name whispered when no one was there. Theories abounded. Paranormal experts suggested that the building had accumulated emotional energy from its tragic history, trapping residual echoes of past events that replay like a haunting. Some believe that the spirits of those who died there, whether by suicide, murder, or unknown causes, were still tied to the physical space, drawn out at night when the rest of the world slept. Psychologists offered alternate explanations. If someone believes a place is haunted, they can experience sleep disturbances, night terrors, and even auditory hallucinations triggered by fear or anxiety. The brain, exposed to unfamiliar surroundings and subtle signals like flickering lights or distant footsteps, can fill in the gaps with imagined threats. But even these experts admitted the Cecil's track record was unusual compared to other historic hotels. There were specific urban legends attached to the hallways. One involved an elevator that sometimes stopped on floors that didn't exist, trapping guests between stories until the elevator resumed on its own. Another involved locked rooms that would suddenly open at the exact moment someone felt most afraid. No official maintenance records ever explained these anomalies fully. Then there was the rarely discussed element of time distortion. Several people reported looking at the clock, stepping into another room for what felt like a moment, and finding hours had passed without their awareness. One long-term resident said she'd often lose track of time at night and awaken in a room she did not remember entering. No one could explain how or why, but the reports were consistent. The Bedside Sleep Disorder Clinic in Los Angeles even received multiple calls from former Cecil guests describing nightmares, hallucinations, and disrupted sleep patterns linked to their stay. Although these symptoms can be medically explained in many contexts, the sheer number of similar complaints tied to one location was extraordinary. Then there were the whispers that survived long after guests checked out. Emails and messages from former visitors describe waking up to feel someone breathing near their pillow, only to find nothing there. Some said they heard low voices chanting unintelligible words just beyond hearing range. Others reported watching door handles wiggle at night, as if someone was trying to open them from the outside. The Cecil Hotel eventually closed portions of the building for extended renovations and rebranding. Management promised a cleaner, safer experience for guests. But even after cosmetic upgrades, reports of uneasiness and haunted impressions resurfaced whenever new guests checked in late at night. Some travelers chose to book only sunset to sunrise stays, arriving at dusk and leaving before midnight, saying the discomfort always increased after dark. Others refused to close the curtains, insisting that darkness empowered whatever lurked in the corners. Some even admitted they made up excuses and cut their trip short because they just couldn't sleep there. No matter how you explain it, paranormal activity, psychological response, or mass urban legend, the fact remains. The Cecil Hotel is synonymous with sleepless nights, unsettled minds, and a dark legacy that doesn't fade. And for many, the question still echoes. Why does nobody sleep at the Cecil Hotel in Los Angeles?